To another episode of the Market Open. We are live. It is a Wednesday, June 3rd. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We have a lot to talk about. Got some pretty interesting macro stuff going on right now in the midst of, you guessed it, the Iran war, which is not over yet. And because it's not over, and because of some updates from last night, unfortunately, we've got oil up at the highest we've seen since basically 2 weeks ago. We had a nice 2 weeks of below 95, a couple days below 90. We're back up above 96. Would not surprise me if this heads to 100 unless Trump can say some stuff to calm things down. If he can't, I think we are going higher on oil, which means we're going higher on inflation expectations, unfortunately. And that's why the stock market is relatively red in the pre-market. There are certain names that are going up. Obviously, Bitcoin has been taking a pretty big hit. We'll talk about that. But the broader market itself, S&P 500 and a variety of the different tech stocks that are in the market are down outside of a couple semi stocks that we'll talk about. And Marvell is just marvelous. I mean, what else? What else do you say about Marvell? So we'll talk more about this one. Jensen said it's going to a trillion. So it's going to a trillion. It's only 250 billion. It's got a long way to go. So there you go. That's up another 10%. But yeah, some of these updates last night around Iran. I mean, look, if the market chooses to ignore the whole oil situation again, which it's kind of been doing for the past 2 weeks, then sure, I think we continue to pass through 7,600 today. If not, then, we might have a little bit of a hiccup today. But again, those hiccups have been short-lived. The dips have been bought because the AI CapEx story is more important. So we're going to see how the market thinks of it. But long-term, we'll try to get an understanding going into the end of the day. We have some big earnings today. We have CrowdStrike and Broadcom. I will not be live for the market close today. I am traveling. We're going to end the market open a little bit early today as well. Got to catch a flight. You guys will find out where I am tomorrow morning, but I will be live for the market open for the next 3 days. So we're just not doing the market close for the next 3 days. Steve's going to do the market close, but I will not. So Broadcom and CrowdStrike are going to be super important. Now, Palo Alto Networks had a really good earnings last night. We'll talk about that. That helped CrowdStrike pump. Palo Alto is down 3%, I think, because they just went up so much into the print. They pumped about 10%. Now they're down 3%. So we'll talk more about their numbers. But the numbers were pretty phenomenal for the. I mean, they doubled their rate of growth for the first time in 5 years. Just unbelievable types of numbers. It's just the stock was up a lot. So I think that's why the stock took a hit. But we'll talk about some of these numbers, and then we will see tomorrow morning some of the earnings that we get after the bell. And then we'll keep going from there. Are you going to San Antonio? Dude, I wish I was going to that game. That is tonight. Today's the first game. Wemby is dropping bars, bro. In the media press conference yesterday, they asked him like, why do you guys think you can win? And he was like, well, because we haven't experienced the impossible, we don't think that things are impossible. I was like, damn. He was like, well, people say it's impossible, but we never we never got to the finals and then lost, and so we don't have this stench of feeling like, oh, this is impossible. So we're just doing stuff that's impossible because we don't know if it's possible or not. Just like the dude is legit. Like, I want him to be great. I want him to win, but also I'm like, dude, I want the Knicks. I want New York to enjoy the summer and to win as well. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see what happens. Should be an exciting time, but no, I will not be going to the game, but I will be going somewhere else that I'm pretty excited about, and I think you guys will enjoy it as well. All right, so let's get into it. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Let's get started. Yep, we have GameStop earnings from last night, which was actually pretty good. You had Palo Alto, Ulta, Marvell. We will talk about that. Iran got a deal this morning. We don't have an Iran deal, but we do have an Iran deal, so we'll talk about that. And then we'll get into everything else. Also, Jason is officially joining the stock draft. I talked to him last night. So June 20th, it will be myself, Steve, Chris, Matt, Tanner, and Jason. So it'll be all 6 of us in the stock draft. I think it's going to be really fun, really exciting. We'll have more updates on that going into June 20th. And we'll see what happens from there. So far, just a real quick update on it. Because of the space stocks taking a hit, I am in first place. But if Matt ends up getting the SpaceX IPO to go well, he's probably going to get back into first place. The fact that Steve is 4% away from me because of Micron is incredible. And if Broadcom crushes it, he might end up being in first place, which would be just crazy on those 2 stocks. But that could happen. Tanner's at 17, and then Chris is at 45. Chris also has Marvell, by the way. So that's the update on the stock draft, and we'll keep going from there going into the June 20th second version of it. All right, so let's get started. Updates on, well, let's do this Iran deal real quick, and then we'll talk about Iran. So Iran has signed a transmission connection agreement for 800 megawatts of data center capacity in Australia. The site includes 4 300K feeder exits supporting up to 800 megawatts without network upgrades, with energization expected in 2028. The project gives Iran its first announced Australian data center campus with submarine fiber connectivity to APAC markets, including Singapore, South Korea, Japan, and Indonesia. So this is not an official Microsoft's giving them $30 billion type of a deal, but it does give them a lot more capacity. And in this environment that we're in for data centers, I mean, Jensen said this at GTC in Taipei the other day. Also, the OpenAI CFO just had a new press conference or a new interview, and we'll listen to some of the stuff she said. But we are compute constrained, and the ability to find compute is very, very difficult, which means the players that have the most capacity, even if it's, you know, not full on capacity in every single element of what it means to build a data center, but they have the most important thing, which is connected megawatts or gigawatts. That matters. Like, it really does matter. And I know everyone kind of has been poo-pooing on Iran, given CoreWeave and Nebius have had a massive move. But at the end of the day, if they have the capacity and we're compute constrained, there is no reason outside of management completely messing up the opportunity, which would be surprising given how much Jensen and Michael Dell and all these people have co-signed them from getting another big deal. I think it's a matter of when, not if. And if that happens, then I think the market's going to be very excited about it. 69.60 did touch 79 in the pre, or 71 in the pre-markets. Hopefully that flips when the market opens. But that one is green, and so the Iran bulls should be happy about that today. SpaceX IPO update. They are sizing it at $75 billion, 1.75 trillion valuation. They're going to go on the road show starting today. And 555 million shares will be coming to the public at a price of $135. When I found out it was $135, by the way, Navitas also signed a new deal with NVIDIA today. That's why that stock's up 18%. So you got two of the AI names in the pre-market, Navitas and Iran, getting some more momentum right there. Navitas says the design removes the need for traditional 48V intermediary bus converters inside compute server trays. Partnership with NVIDIA, that stock up 18% in the pre-market. This is their third NVIDIA partnership in the past, I think it's almost 4 months. And the first one, obviously, is what got this one to get re-rated originally. The fact that it's only $135, I think this thing is getting bid up to $250. Maybe $250 is aggressive, but it's at least getting up to $185-ish. Like, $135 is not that crazy. And people are not going to care about the valuation or the market cap. People are not going to get, there's about $135. You know, it's not $400, $500. It's not $1,000. It's $135. I mean, you're just going to have a lot of orders coming in, even if it goes up to $185. I mean, if people are ready to buy Marvell at $300, I mean, when you're under that kind of $400 price range, psychologically, it's just easy for people to justify buying more stocks. And so I kind of think the SpaceX IPO is going to go very well. Do they get that $75 billion? Yes. Do they get more than that? It's going to be the question going into that $2 trillion, $2.5 trillion valuation. But if that does happen, ASTS Rocket Lab, which had a good rebound yesterday, I think they might get some love as well. ASTS is down in the pre-market 3.5%, and then Rocket Lab down about 3.8% as well. But that's going to be really important. And we're going to find out. How do we get our hands on it? You can request from Schwab Fidelity. I don't think Robinhood's doing the pre-IPO request allocation. I haven't seen it on my app, but I doubt you're going to get the share. So really, it's a question of as soon as the market opens, you're going to have to put in a bid, which is going to have to be much higher than 135. If there's not any interest, maybe it goes below 135. But you know, June 12th will be live the whole day, and we're going to see what ends up happening. Here was the OpenAI CFO yesterday talking about how compute constrained we are, which I think is bullish for all the neoclouds in the broader AI sector.
That people get that feeling, by the way. But the landscape right now, in 26, if you want to buy more compute, good luck to you. Like, tell me, because I don't know where else to find it. I mean, as you
Elon has some.
Well, I was going to say, Elon, ironically, ended up being the one person that had too much compute in a way. But good job on like figuring out how to sell that off. In 27, it's pretty limited as well, frankly. Now, there's a couple of things shifting around. When we talk about compute, there's training that mostly still all happens here in the United States for USG reasons, for making sure that a national asset, in effect, is happening on US soil. For inference, we want that to be global. And I think particularly in an agentic world, you want much more kind of real time, even for things like Sora and video, which, by the way, yeah, we had to make a really tough choice because we didn't have enough compute
And
we
it uses
said,
a lot.
right now, yeah, video does, but video is not over. Like in particular, when you start to think about where AI is taking us into more multimodality. So remember, we've all been taught by the last generation of technology to talk with our thumbs. It's a disease. You walk around, everyone's looking down, they don't look up anymore. Teenagers sit on my sofa at night and talk to each other with their thumbs. I'm like, who are you talking to? And my son will be like, him. I'm like, okay, talk. Multimodality is here. Hopefully, I think you all talked about it this weekend. You're talking to your tool. I talk to Codex every day. And so that is changing rapidly.
So the broader argument she's making is that they don't have enough compute. They don't find, they're not seeing any compute visibility into 2027. And to OpenAI's credit, they got hit with a lot of criticism over the past couple of years of having all these spending commitments. And now they kind of look like geniuses because, I mean, if they didn't have those spending commitments and they didn't have Oracle and Stargate and SoftBank and AMD having all these different, and Broadcom, their custom chips, Cerebrus, if they didn't have all those commitments and partnerships set into space. By the way, AMD crossing 530 in the pre-market. I am just seeing that. There you go, 535 up 2.3%. If they didn't have that, they wouldn't have the compute. And now Anthropic had to raise $65 billion, which is 80% of what SpaceX is trying to raise, just to be able to get more compute. So I think from a compute perspective, it is strong that OpenAI ended up raising the money that they raised and had all these commitments. The question is going to be, is that compute going to be valuable comparison to Anthropic? That is obviously winning heavily in the enterprise, which is why she mentioned, that video is not done, but obviously they had to make a choice, and Codex was way more valuable than Sora, which is why they nuked the Sora project. The broader point is, if you believe in the AI thesis, if you believe in Marvell going to $1 trillion, you have to believe that we're compute constrained, because if we weren't compute constrained, there wouldn't be the type of supply and demand that's existing to pressure not only the stock prices of these companies, but the earnings growth of these companies. And we saw that with HPE and Dell over the past 2 weeks, put up the monster numbers that they have. HPE down about 4% in the pre-market. Dell is down about 0.5%. Dell got to 495 yesterday, now at 433. So this one's taking a breather, still up a lot, but you do have a lot of bag holders from 495 to 433 thinking it would go up to 500. And I mean, I hope that doesn't happen with Marvell today, but it is going to be the most interesting one for today. Where does Marvell go? Have people had enough, or are people just like, nope, we're sending it to 500? And by the way, in that Jensen clip yesterday, I don't think I played the full part of it. He didn't just say Jensen's going to be he didn't just say Marvell's going to be $1 trillion company. He said to buy Marvell. Did you guys hear that part? He said to buy Marvell. I'm going to try to see if I can get the exact part of where he said that. But when I heard him say buy Marvell, I was like, oh my goodness, that's why it actually went up that much. It's not that he said it's $1 trillion. He literally said buy Marvell. And that's when I think the entire Taiwanese audience was like, okay, we're going to buy Marvell. So yeah, it was at the end, right? You guys heard it? I'm going to try to find the exact clip where he said it, but I was listening to it last night and I was like, he literally said buy Marvell. So that, that type of endorsement, he's not just saying, yeah, I think Marvell's a good company. He's literally telling people to buy Marvell. And because he's doing that, I wonder if this thing is just going to moonshot like a Micron. Now, the difference between this and Micron is Micron had a very cheap, still has a very cheap forward PE. Marvell does not. Okay, we're looking at 170 times forward. It's a little expensive to say the least, but and they don't have the pricing power that a Micron has. The optical network connectivity is important, but it's not in the tight supply of HBM. So there are some fundamental dynamics that are different. But Jensen also didn't tell you to buy Micron; he's telling you to buy Marvell. And I think that's why the market is excited about that. Can he say buy NVIDIA? Yeah, that would be nice for him to say buy NVIDIA. So let's talk about NVIDIA. What happened yesterday? NVIDIA went up to 235. They pumped her, and then they took her right back down to the 220s. It was very interesting how NVIDIA got hit yesterday. I took a trade on NVIDIA yesterday, ended up losing money. Got in at 224. I was like, enough is enough. 224. It's going to go long. And then it went down to 223. I was like, okay, I lost money on this. I did make money on Marvell, but I sold it at 284. So it balanced out the NVIDIA loss, but obviously Marvell is doing a lot better now. So I didn't expect NVIDIA to completely make a new low for the day after they took it down below support, and they did. And that was surprising to me. It's almost like all the money just went up to Marvell and left NVIDIA. I don't know why it took that fall yesterday. I think this is just another stock that at this point is in the hands of the market makers and what they want to do with it. They will let it run when it's time to run, but until they do, there was no headline yesterday to take it down outside of oil going up, but oil going up didn't stop BlackBerry from having a great day or Nokia from breaking 17 or from Marvell from going higher. And so I don't know. I think it's one of those things where NVIDIA is NVIDIA. And until the market is ready to let it run, they are not going to let it run. Can you say Rocket Lab? Yeah, Jensen just needs to have a day where he names like the most popular retail companies and says, hey, they should be going up. Iran and oil. So Trump is not happy with Bibi. Here's what he had to say in an interview yesterday.
A phone call with Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, in which you were angry with him. You said, are you effing crazy? What are you effing doing? I helped you stay out of jail. Is that true? Did you speak to him in those terms?
I did. I wouldn't say angry. I was a little bit perturbed at his constantly fighting with Lebanon. At some point I said, Bibi, we got to stop this. We got to stop it. But I have a very good relationship. We've done well together. He always says, we could never have done it, but everybody knows that we could have never done it without the United States. But I've worked very well together. I like Bibi a lot, and I've worked very well with him. We had I'm a wartime president. He's a wartime prime minister. Very important part of the world, and I think we've done very well. We've gotten along very well together.
What do you say to people who claim that Bibi Netanyahu tricked you into going into Iran?
Well, they're just, the enemy. They're just, the Democrats,
Right.
DUM. These are Democrats. These are people that don't know what they're doing. They want men playing in women's sports, and they want open borders so the world can pour into our country, and they want transgender for everybody, surgery, and they want transgender mutilization.
All right. So in terms of the stuff that mattered from that podcast, he talked about a bunch of things, but the main thing is you could tell he was obviously very annoyed about the attacks on Lebanon. And I mean, that was the biggest news on Monday, where the street ignored it. Oil did not ignore it. The 10-year did not ignore it. But you could tell that Trump was upset because that kind of took away some of the negotiating power, at least in theory. I mean, the thing that's been reported about Trump over the past couple of days is that he's getting really tired of the negotiations. And there was one quote from a White House official that basically said he could care less about if the negotiations fall through or not. At this point, he's just annoyed at the whole situation. I would be annoyed too. I mean, obviously it's been a long time. He said 4 to 6 weeks. It's been a couple months now, but at its core, it does feel like we are closer than not. Trump had a bunch of quotes this morning saying that I think we'll get a deal done over the next week. I know he's been saying this over and over again, but nonetheless, I think he's trying to calm down the oil markets. He also said Iran has agreed they will not have a nuclear weapon. This is the same thing that he's been saying over and over again, but I think he's trying to calm down the markets after the Lebanon attacks. And, time will tell if he can get Israel to be on his side, and we can move on from this. But right now, it still feels like we don't exactly have a deal. Again, if you think that the lack of a deal is the worst thing in the world for the markets, then you got to go to cash or go short. And I just don't know if that's the smartest move, given we haven't seen the impact of that on the markets yet. Now, maybe the SpaceX IPO, maybe there's some catalysts that we're going to need. The fact that Marvell can go up, $50 billion a day off a Jensen comment it's not concerning, but it's a little weird, right? It means there is so much excitement in this market that people are so ready to buy at the slightest bit of data, like a Jensen quote, that things can go up. It means there's a lot of liquidity out there. There's no liquidity for Bitcoin, but there's a lot of liquidity out there. And so it's one of those things where it's like, if something does break, you could see things falling quite quickly. But the oil markets and the Iran war is not what's causing this to break, at least not yet. And so we're going to see if this thing can hold through. Again, the earnings growth is kind of the big reason why the markets have held on. Broadcom, by the way, up 2.3%. We had that big news yesterday about Google diluting by $80 billion. A lot of that money is going to be going into their TPU suppliers, which is Broadcom. So they will have earnings today, and we'll see what they can end up saying later throughout the day. T1 Energy was getting a bit of a dump in the pre-market because they acquired a company. Now they're pumping. They paid about $35 million for an acquisition in the energy space. So it went down, and now it's going back up 2.7%. Navitas, again, had a partnership with NVIDIA this morning. That's why that stock up 23%. This is it's not a small cap, but it's a mid cap, $6 billion. So, this one theoretically could make a move much higher if it gets a lot more attention today. Year to date, is this at all-time highs? This is, no, all-time highs was May 26th. So if this one surpasses 33.82, you might see this one breaking through all-time highs. Okay, so that's what we got with the Iran situation. By the way, this was the Jensen clip where he said buy Marvell. It was at the very end. This is why this was not posted that often of the keynote. And that's where I think people also got excited to buy Marvell.
All right, good to see you, brother. All right, take care. Okay, you guys, thank you. Thank you, Jensen. Bye, Marvell. Bye, Marvell. All right,
Dude, even the CEO is just like, holy crap. Is he like, what did I do to deserve this? Like, $1 trillion company, buy Marvell. It's like, how important are my products? How important is optical connectivity to get Jensen to be this freaking excited about I mean, did Jensen have a drink before he went on stage? Like, he's like, I've never seen Jensen this excited about a company ever. Can anyone name me a company that he's been this excited about? So there's something about Marvell for him to be that enthusiastic to literally tell people to buy it. And, maybe he wasn't talking about the stock. Maybe he was talking about but the point is, like, if you say buy Marvell, like, people are going to interpret it in a certain way. And boom, it's going to go up. So, yeah, I mean, and memory is, I think, in a much tougher supply-demand situation than optics. But Jensen has never went out and said, go buy SanDisk, buy Micron. He's never said that. So it is one of those things that makes you think, what is so special about Marvell that's important? I don't think he said buy BYE. And even if he did, it doesn't matter because, if the market's going to perceive it as BUY, if perception is reality in the stock market, which 99% of the time it is, then there you go. It also, to me, it sounded like buy versus BYE. But regardless, people are buying Marvell, and that's why it's going higher. Shopify right there. Shopify increased their share buyback authorization to $3 billion yesterday. To $5 billion. They increased it by $3 billion. So Toby thinks the stock is cheap. They're getting ready to buy back another $5 billion of stock. GameStop increased their buyback allocation by $2 billion. GameStop had a legit quarter. This is one of the best quarters GameStop had. And then we'll talk about Palo Alto in a very long time. Highest quarterly net income ever at $389 million in profits. Q1 operating income of $143 million. So some really good margins on their revenue. Net sales up 14% year over year. Last year, they were down 30% year over year. They have $9.7 billion in cash, securities, digital assets, and their collectibles business drove the majority of their growth when it came to top line revenue. So I thought this was actually pretty strong for GameStop, and they probably deserve a bit of a pump that they're getting right here, 8.7%. Palo Alto, though, was the story of last night. They're down 3.7%, but take a look at this chart on Palo Alto's revenue growth. For the past few years, they have been growing top line at 15%. So take a look at this right here. Last time they grew even close to 20% was July 2023. Since then, it's been 12, 14, 14, 15, 16, 16, 15, and then April 26, 31%. Now, a lot of this is also inorganic because they've had a lot of acquisitions, which has been really important for their growth. But part of the thing that I was saying over the past couple of days is that you need the software companies to start showing massive growth. Like you can't, do 15, 20% growth. You can't have Adobe 9% growth and expect the multiples to sustain themselves. And although Palo Alto is down right here, would not surprise me if this flips green in the pre-market. But you're seeing real growth from the cybersecurity names. And if that growth can continue, I think the market's going to be excited for what CrowdStrike can put up, which has also been growing at this kind of sub 20% range. Get that to 30%, 40%. Palantir's obviously at 85%. You're going to see a lot more growth, and hopefully that growth will get a lot more excitement. The collectibles was the big factor, not gaming. Correct. So collectibles, which has kind of been the thesis on GameStop for a while, is starting to become what the street cares about, not the legacy video game business. I mean, look, is GameStop a buy until they resolve the eBay situation? And I think Ryan Cohen has a more compelling pitch to show what they're going to do with the cash. Not in my opinion. I think there's just so many other opportunities in the market versus being stuck in GameStop. But if you're in it, it was a good quarter, and it probably continues to reinforce your belief that the company could be a turnaround story. AMD and Intel both getting a pump pre-market. We talked about the Navitas partnership. That's why that's up 21%. I'm not sure why Intel and AMD are up, but they are green. NVIDIA's red, so maybe, once again, a little bit of rotation right there out of NVIDIA. They give it a little bit of a pump every other day, and then they take her down. And AMD and Intel here now are green. Macy's just had earnings. Is the stock up? They beat on the top and the bottom. Up 2%. Strongest Q1 in 4 years, and they're raising their fiscal year guidance. Wow. They raised from 21.59 billion to 21.75, adjusted EPS 210 to 220, beat on EPS, beat on revenue. This is a pretty decent quarter for Macy's. Similar with Ulta yesterday. Ulta also in the makeup space had a really good quarter. You're seeing these consumer brands. I know consumer confidence is at levels that are not that great. Ulta right there down about 3.4%, but the actual companies responsible for the earnings right here, I mean, they're putting them up. They are putting them up, which is nice to see. And as long as they continue to put them up, it doesn't look like, hopefully, that slows down. And you know, speaking of companies putting up profits, Jensen at Taiwan today was doing a fireside chat, and he said that financial, you know, you talk about Jensen. This is why I think he said BUY Marvell instead of BYE Marvell. Jensen Huang said in a closed-door event with financial institutions and family offices that investors willing to bet on the AI boom can expect, quote, insane returns. Quote, only for the last 6 months has the ROI been completely reset. It is now insanely profitable. Remember last year when we were together, the rhetoric and the narrative around the investment were, what's the ROI? Give me one example of some crazy person saying that now. They're going to sound insane. So you've got Jensen kind of really pounding the table here, saying it is time to buy AI stocks. He's calling other companies that are worth, you know, less than $200 trillion companies. And it seems like he is not slowing down his belief on what's happening with the broader sector of AI. Now, you've got some people thinking he's getting a little too pumpy, and it's a bad sign to see him be so optimistic and literally telling people to buy stocks. But you've also got likely his confidence starting to become more enforced. I mean, they did just have the best 2 quarters they've ever had in the history of the company. And, you know, that's why I think he's not slowing down in terms of his broader excitement for AI. However, there are some companies slowing down their token budget. So this was a piece of news last night that I thought was really interesting. Uber is capping their AI coding tool spend at $1,500 per employee per month after burning through its 2026 AI budget in 4 months. This was interesting. The cap applies separately to each tool, meaning spending on one platform does not eat into the allowance for the other. The policy marks a sharp reversal from the near unlimited access Uber had granted roughly 5,000 engineers to tools like Claude Code in the beginning of December 2025. Now, this is important to keep an eye on because at the end of the day, we cannot live in a fantasy land. If these companies are not seeing a return on the investment, they cannot just justify every 90 days to investors, yeah, we're spending unlimited amounts of money on tokens and we're not growing in unlimited amounts, right? Or we're not seeing a headcount reduction to the point where we can offset the cost. And I think that's why Zuck's also had to lay off 8,000 people. So it's one of those things where eventually we need more compute to get the cost per token to go down. And until the cost per token goes down, you know, you're going to have some companies, say Microsoft did this the other day by getting rid of Claude Code inside of their enterprise as well, replacing it with a Copilot, which is that it's just too expensive. And because it's too expensive, it's one of those things where it's like, at what point do we justify this to make sense? Now, this could also be an Uber specific thing. You know, maybe Uber's not really seeing the value in particular, but Uber's a pretty big company that has a lot of free cash flow. You would think they would be able to generate an ROI from all this coding or from all this token spend. But this is something we definitely got to keep an eye on. Just like we're keeping an eye on, layoffs, we got to keep an eye on the economics of the token spend as well and seeing how that continues to go. This was the OpenAI CFO yesterday also talking about how the economics are changing for a business that, you know, quite frankly, is burning a lot of money every month.
That, you know, so when I think about investment, we're having to invest ahead of demand. That means we need to both be able to find all of the compute and all the pieces and then pay for it. So that goes back to your capital question on IPO. And then on the other side, on the economics, look, the economics do continue to get better. They're getting better on multiple fronts. I think we are doing a better job of actually showing true value to our customers. And I think you get beyond kind of a cost plus type pricing into something that feels more akin to the value being created. Now, scarcity of tokens helps because it's causing a bit of a compression in
talk
cost.
about that in just like without specific names.
So again, the core argument here is that the margins are getting better on the economics, but the fact is we are so compute constrained that, you know, it's tough to easily say that we have all the compute available, which is why, you know, they're still having to subsidize a lot of the cost for all the users that are using as many of the tokens that they're using, particularly in the enterprise. CEO Lip Bhutan at Computex said CPU demand is surging on agentic AI. That's probably the reason Intel is going green right here. I forgot that the CEO of Intel was there. And as a result of that, you're probably seeing the market buy up Intel based on some of his comments as well. as that continues to go green. Bitcoin. Okay, let's talk about Bitcoin. Intel, by the way, 7% right there. So definitely market is taking his comments seriously at Computex. I saw a video last night of another streamer who is not a finance streamer. He's in the pop culture world that is primarily based for people who are, I don't know, I would say 17 to 22 years old, maybe younger, that watch this guy. And, you know, this is what he said on May 26th. And I think if I had seen this video on May 26th, I would have a better understanding of why Bitcoin is falling as much as it's falling.
That people
Recently, I actually put all my money, every penny, every dollar I have, and I have taken it and put it into Bitcoin. Yes, that's right. I have. I'm telling y'all right now, I know things, okay? I can predict the future. I can predict the market. And Bitcoin is going to have a boom soon.
I think, dude, if I saw that on May 26th, I'd be like, all right, yeah, this shit's going down. It's over, dude. When you've got pop culture streamers that really don't care about finance or anything around the market saying, I'm just selling everything and I'm buying Bitcoin. Uzi says that was me during COVID when we got the stimmy. Well, it worked when you got the stimmy. The problem is we don't have any stimulus. We don't have any liquidity. And unfortunately, you know, we're not seeing Bitcoin get the bid. Look, my thesis on this is very simple. Jason talked about it last night when he was on the show. He thinks this is the time to nibble. I don't disagree with him. I think at this point, you're basically at not the lows of the year, but is it the lows of the year? I think you're very close to the lows of the year. Yeah, lows was 60,000, but that was like a flash crash back in February 5th. Then we jumped up to 68. So this is at 67. We basically are at the lows of the year. I think all the money is going into Marvell. I think all the money is going into AI. I think all the money is going into AMD. I think there's people seeing BlackBerry go up and saying, why am I in Bitcoin when BlackBerry, which actually has a legit QNX platform, we talked about that last week, partnership with NVIDIA. This one is up a decent chunk over the past couple of months. Like, isn't this more valuable and relevant? And isn't there a narrative that's exciting here? Whereas the sort of cult leader of Bitcoin is selling his Bitcoin, that doesn't give you a lot of confidence to stay in the asset class. Now, Saylor only sold 32 Bitcoin. It's really nothing in the grand scheme of things, but it's the principle of him doing it, which I think, you know, pissed off so many people and made people realize, oh, this guy is not who he says he was. Also, STRC, that risk-free, quote unquote, risk-free 11.5% return, this thing is supposed to stay stable at 100. Just like SGov, the bonds are kind of stable at 164 cents. They vary by 1 cent every day. It's now down $4. And you got a lot of people thinking, hold on a second. The only reason STRC can give me my quote unquote risk-free 11.5% yield is because the value of the assets on the balance sheet ultimately affect the credit underwriting of the ability for them to put out these preferred shares. If the value of that asset collapses, aka Bitcoin, you know, goes down substantially, I wonder if the STRC shares are going to be able to hold their fair value. So you got a lot of people questioning a lot of things. I think also you do have a lot of people that are so afraid of Bitcoin right now that's also potentially the alpha. That's the opportunity. Like when people get this nervous about it, given we are in that part of the cycle where it should be taking a hit and hopefully in November it reverses, then maybe that's the opportunity to get more exposure. So I don't know. I do sympathize with people saying screw Bitcoin. There's so many better opportunities, but I also sympathize with people saying, well, this is one of the better opportunities because it's hard for me to buy Dell at 500 after it's pumped so much. It's easier to buy Bitcoin and just be more patient. And I guess over the coming months, we're going to see what ends up happening there. AMD is up, I think, because of these Intel comments. If Lip Butang is getting everyone so excited about CPUs, then I would imagine that's why AMD is getting the bid. I don't see any specific quote or headline on AMD, but yeah, they had a conference yesterday. All the highlights from that conference are not really anything we're seeing that's that different. CPU TAM, Lisa Su says it should be 120 billion by 2030. x86 superior and a software advantage over ARM. They have 4 gigawatts just from OpenAI and Meta in 2027. More unit expansion, but will enjoy higher average selling prices for customers that buy their core CPUs. So basically, I think everything they said yesterday at the BofA Security Conference, along with what Lip Butang said at the Taipei conference last night, is bullish CPUs. My goodness, AMD 541. You know, we were talking about this yesterday. Why isn't AMD going to $1 trillion? And why isn't it going there this year? I mean, if Marvell can go up by 80 billion in a day and not really have the type of earnings growth that AMD has, like, how is AMD not going to be $1 trillion company this year? I mean, it seems kind of inevitable at this point, and I think the street might just end up taking it there. 541, there you go, up 3.7%. Obviously, it's easier to move an $850 billion company versus to move a $5 trillion company. And, you know, you might have some people leave NVIDIA to go buy AMD. Why is NVIDIA moving with it? Exactly for that reason. I mean, I hate saying that reason because it's such a crappy reason, but it's just a bigger company. And also the CPU like bull case is being seen as like NVIDIA's 2023 moment, right? Where they exploded earnings growth. Now, the problem is NVIDIA is saying, hey, we're going to participate in that CPU moment. In fact, we're going to have the most amount of CPU with the whole Vera stuff they talked about on the earnings call over the past couple of weeks. And like, you would think if the CPU explosion is that real, buy NVIDIA, which is kind of what Jensen is implying. But that's where I get to, okay, the market's just more excited for the rate of growth, even though NVIDIA has a higher rate of growth than all these other companies. And, you know, that's where they're perceiving that to be AMD and Intel. So there you go. Just getting a lot more people excited for what that could be when it comes to Intel and AMD. Amcor, by the way, getting a nice little boost in the pre-market as well. Look at that, 6%, 79.19, as that one continues to move. Ford U.S. made total vehicle sales is down 13.6%, 190,000 cars. Ford was seen as a data center energy play over the past couple of weeks, which is why the stock has gotten a pump. It's down in the pre-market, was down 3% yesterday. Ford right there, little red, down 14% year over year in sales. Okay, so that is what we got with some of these other headlines. We have about 7 minutes until the market opens. Gold and silver have also been relatively dead. Gold's down about 1%, silver's down 2%. Again, I think a lot of the assets have ultimately decided to go to AI more than anything. You had Warren on this morning, and she was saying that we need to have a wealth tax. Don't know if we'll actually have a wealth tax, but we're going to see what happens. Jamie Dimon is saying the Clarity Bill is stupid. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem like you're going to easily get the Clarity Bill passed as much as people want it to get passed. Goldman Sachs CEO David did say yesterday that this whole unemployment narrative around AI is wrong, and the jolts potentially, if you believe in those job numbers, proved it yesterday, adding 800,000 more jobs than expected.
I'm not going to talk specifically about any of the deals. I just make an observation that any of you can make by looking at the screen today as Alphabet is going through the process of raising, this $80 billion, and we are in the middle of it. The stock is trading quite well. Okay, this is the largest equity deal, largest follow-on equity deal that's ever been done. The stock's trading quite well. At least when I looked as I pulled in here, the stock was down about 2%. Might be bouncing around, but the stock's trading very well. That's it. This is the first actual concrete data point for bringing something of this scale, and it's encouraging.
Yeah.
Okay, and so, I think there's plenty of liquidity in the system if the world continues to remain as optimistic. And I do think we're in a period, and I know when I say this, so I'm pausing for a second to say it, but I know when I say it, it will get quoted. But I think it's definitely true and something for us to reflect on. We are definitely in a moment where there's more greed than there is fear. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why people that need this capital are coming to the markets, because the capital's available. And so if you're advising companies that need capital, one of the big piece of base advice for 42 years of doing this, when capital's available, if you're capital consumptive and it's available, take the capital, okay, if you know that you're going to need it. And so, given the way equity markets are robust, debt markets are robust at the moment, I think you are seeing a lot of activity, and I think you're going to continue to see activity. But I just say, in the context, these are unprecedented in terms of the size. There's also unprecedented liquidity and wealth in the markets, to absorb some of this. And it also, these things also.
So that's Goldman's perspective, the CEO, on how many jobs we're going to increase. You have some counter perspectives from different people across the political aisle. Bernie Sanders yesterday came out with an introduction for a bill to give the public 50% of an ownership stake in the largest AI companies in America.
Fund Act. This legislation would give the public a direct ownership stake in the largest AI companies in America through a one-time 50% tax, not on profits, but on stock. It would do two extremely critical things. First, it would give the American people a direct role in determining the future of this technology. No longer would the future of AI be dictated by a handful of big tech oligarchs while the rest of the world sits back and watches them do what they want.
I really don't understand the proposal because he says a 50% ownership stake, but then he says a one-time tax. So does that mean he's taxing 50% of the market cap of these companies? Because you can't do that. That's just not how it works unless the US steals 50% of the shares from Google and says this is now for the American public. If you were to do a 50% tax on Google's revenue this year, I think they're going to do like 300 billion. You take 150 billion of that. It's like, okay, you take 150 or their net income. So if they do 100 billion net income, you take 50 billion of that. That's fine. But 50 billion is nothing. And it's not an ownership stake. And again, 50 billion for the entire country is really a couple peanuts, to be honest. We spend more than that every other few weeks. So it's a little confusing on how he's thinking of doing this. But the point is, once again, when it comes to monitoring the overall perspective of how AI is being perceived in America, we saw that video last week of Eric Schmidt being booed on stage. You got a lot of people that are not invested in these stocks. You got a lot of people that are not looking at Marvell's chart all day and figuring out how they can make money on this because Jensen said it's going to $1 trillion. You got a lot of people that don't even know what Marvell is. And so they don't really care. It's not affecting them. It's not helping them. It's not changing their life. And as a result of that, the Bernies of the world that propose this type of legislation, which I think many more politicians going into the midterms are going to echo these same statements around AI. And, you know, that's why the CFO yesterday at the All In podcast, she was trying to say, in these communities, we're paying for the cost. We're trying to make sure that people's electricity bills don't go up, right? Like they're trying to make the PR case for why it's not going to increase energy costs and stuff like that. But at some point, either the American people are going to agree with it or not. And there's a segment that might not. And if that's the case, we're going to see, how this AI legislation goes through long term. Again, I don't think that policy is going to be passed, whatever he's proposing. I also don't understand the logistics of it. But the point is the fact that it's out there, the fact that people would be willing to endorse it means there's a divide between how people are thinking about AI. Okay, here we go. 15 seconds. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're all live here today together on planet Earth. And if we're all here together, you know, the one thing that you cannot do is mute the bell because the stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. Marvell opens up 318.37 on the day. That is up 9.3%. It did hit 337 last night. Marvell right there, 318 on the open. We're going to see where this one goes. Dell, that opens up slightly green. BlackBerry, that opens up a little red from the pre-markets last night. It did hit 12 bucks, 1037. That still is up on the day. Intel, 9% on Mr. Intel. That is green. Macy's up 5%. That is green. GameStop up 11%. That is also green. You got Palo Alto taking a bit of a hit. Again, largest organic revenue growth they've had in the past 5 years at 31%. That's down 4% on the day. The stock was up 65% going into the print, but earnings itself were pretty substantial. Navitas, 18% on that NVIDIA partnership. That is green. Rocket Lab down 3.4%. T1 Energy just went red. Hewlett Packard, that's down 1.6%. ASTS is down 4%. IREN just below 69. Tried to get to 70, could not get there, but it is now just below that level. Robinhood, 85.37. Robinhood, that's down 3.2%. Again, Bitcoin getting hit obviously is not going to be the best for Hood, and you're seeing that one also get hit right there. IREN, 68.72. ASTS now down 5%. Ouster, that's down 1%. Shopify down 2%. Seeing some of the SaaS names start to get hit. The Googs, are we green? Google is green, 364. That was at 358 pre-market. AMD, 536, up 3%. So it hit 546 in the pre-market. You're now looking at 536. That is trying to hold on to a bit more of its momentum right here. Marvell, 321. That's up 10. That is up 10. Ulta, that's down 3.6. Uber, that's down 0.5%. Netflix, that's down 0.5%. Nike, that's down 1. Grab, down 1.53. Akamai had a good day yesterday. That's down 1.5. Fastly, down 3. Oklo, down 6. Okay, the nuclear names taking a little bit of a hit right here. Again, oil, 65.50 today. One of the largest spikes we've seen in a while. So you're starting to see everything go red except a few AI names. NVIDIA, they're taking her down. Ford is down. Dell below 430 right here. That one's also getting hit. Where is Palantir? Palantir 148.52. They are taking down Mr. Palantir here as well, as that is indeed getting some pain right here. IGV is software down. IGV is once again down, as that's also getting hit. Reddit, that should be down. Reddit is down. Meta, this one's been stuck all week. It's been pretty freaking ugly. Meta's up. Interesting. So they're giving Meta some love here. They're giving Meta some love. CoreWeave should be down. The NeoClouds should be down today. CoreWeave is down 1.2%. Nebius, are we down? Nebius is actually up. Okay, so Nebius going the opposite of CoreWeave. That is green. Meta's up. Iren, are we at 70? Iren is at 70. Kind of an interesting landscape today to see. Sorry, press the back button on my computer. I should be back now. We should be good. So interesting landscape here as Iren and Nebius going green, Meta going green, CoreWeave getting hit right here. Nokia, that is 1720. All right, getting some love right there. BlackBerry going down from the pre-market, even though it was up. Palantir down 2.4. Once again, it looks like software and NVIDIA are the collateral damage. Microsoft 437. They took Microsoft down below the 440s. This thing was trending up aggressively, like aggressively here today. And they are just letting it go down now. I guess as the street is not happy about it. SoFi, that's got to be getting hit. Again, oil is up, folks. It's a pretty ugly print this morning. Oh, crap. Google's raising their capital raise from $84 billion to $84.75 due to exceeded expectations on the amount of available demand. Wow. Okay, there is no reason in hell that Microsoft and Amazon don't realize they can do the same thing. Amazon right there going red as well, 255. Like, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't Microsoft say, okay, cool, we're doing the exact same thing? We're doing the exact same thing. CoreWeave right there, that's down about 2.2%. I know it's not a lot, but still. Oh, sorry, I said 80 to 84.7. Did I say 84 to 84.7? I meant 80 to 84.7. So that's another $4.7 billion. I might have said 84 to 84.75. 4.7 billion, I know that's not a ton of money, but I mean, 80 billion was already a lot. You're pushing 85 billion right here. Is pretty damn incredible that there's that much demand for this equity that's being dumped on you. And maybe that's also why Berkshire was ready to buy a bit more. But it's more about the principle, right? The fact that they have the ability to put out more shares means that the street's willing to buy it, or that retail investors are willing to buy it. And that's ultimately good for Google's financing needs. Microsoft, wow, 465. This was pushing 470 Sunday night to 435. Reddit down 4. That's got hit. Palantir, I mean, she's trying, but she got hit as well. You're seeing that one go down. Corning, are you getting some love on Corning? Corning is 205. Okay, so at least you got Corning getting a bit more love right there. SoFi, yeah, below 17. I mean, why not? Robinhood 84.32. That one's also getting hit. down about 4%. Netflix, okay, so we were talking about Netflix last night. 75 on Netflix is kind of the level that a lot of us are looking at, but we're going to see if that one ends up getting there. Google, Corning, Nokia, Iran, and Meta going green today, along with AMD and Intel and Amcor, and obviously Marvell, even though that's starting to fall, folks. Marvell, 330 to 305. We got to see if the dip buyers come in right here. NVIDIA, they're letting her go below 220 because who cares about NVIDIA? Intel, they're holding at 115. Macy's is up, and then GameStop also getting some love today as well. Broadcom just went red. Again, the oil thing this morning, the oil spike this morning, at some point, you think the market's going to like not ignore it. And it's easier to ignore it when we're not at all-time highs. When we are at all-time highs, any little issue could take us down, right? Because we're pushing the limit, and we are at all-time highs, basically. And maybe oil today is pushing the limit. Maybe. And maybe not, but right now it's not the best. Meta announces enterprise-focused AI business agent and business agent platform. Is that legit? Hold on, that's important. Are they finally focusing on businesses? Is that happening? If that is, that might be pretty bullish. Maybe that's why the stock is green right here. I'll try to get some updates on that. Now, Zux has talked about working with businesses around agents for a while, but if they're kind of doubling down on that, there you go. There's the stock making its move right there, 2.6. Meta announces enterprise-focused AI business agent and business agent platform. If Zux could just sell compute, that would be enough to get this stock to move, but that's not what they are doing. It looks like maybe they're more focused on AI business agents in general. Amazon 256, that just flipped green. Google, that is also up right here. Wow. The Wall Street Journal exclusively reporting Google equity raise exceeds expectations. Alphabet sees CapEx increasing, quote, significantly versus 2026. Significantly versus 2026. Marvell right there at 307. I mean, if it actually is increasing significantly, if like legit it's increasing significantly, then, well, I think there's definitely going to be the potential for the market to price that in. And I mean, that's why the AI stocks continue to make their move. It's just the actual, shares of the company spending on the CapEx is not necessarily happening. CrowdStrike, how is that going? That was 800 last night. That's 749. Credo just could not catch a bid after their earnings. That's down 8% as well. Credo 211 now. This is an interesting market open, but it's not like it doesn't make sense given where we have oil. And then AMD and Intel don't care. I mean, a lot of names starting to get hit. AMD and Intel holding on. Dell loses 430. This was at 490 yesterday, guys. Sometimes it's just a reminder that, like, yeah, Dell, probably could get back to 490, but man, sometimes when you get to the very end of the chase, you end up buying the top, at least in the short term. And then you have to DCA into Dell, and maybe you didn't want to DCA into Dell, right? So some of these names are just really taking a tumble right here. But Marvell still holding the 300s. Broadcom, we were at 490 in the morning. We are at 477 as the market opens. Zeta is getting hit likely as the software sell-off continues to get worse. Palantir as well, taking a beating right here. So you're seeing pretty much all of these names now start to go a little red. A little red. SPY 757, BMNR, that's down 2, OSS, that's down 3. Where's Micron? We don't look at Micron yet. Micron's a champ. Down $5. It's nothing. What about our space names? ASTS down 7. Rocket Lab down 5. Yeah, I think breather day. I think this is going to be one of those days where we Well, look, I say that right now. It's been 11 minutes. Things could change pretty quickly. But you're seeing every sector outside of a few names inside of the AI space take a pretty big hit. ServiceNow, 5%. This was at 140 almost last week. Or not last week, on Monday. Zscaler down 5. Bloom Energy, this was at 310 yesterday. D-Wave, that's down. Fastly, that was breaking over 21 yesterday. That's down. Silver's down. Tesla, relatively okay today, 421. Oracle getting hit because I think the market thinks that they're going to be doing similar ATM offerings like Google, given now there is more demand for it. TSM, that is down. UNH raised their dividend by 5% today. UNH, that's up a little bit. Some of those value stocks getting a little bit of love. Verizon, not as red. I mean, literally nothing has changed with software, but now the hedge funds don't want it. Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of sectors are being used, in my opinion, as liquidity for other sectors. And so it wouldn't surprise me if in 20 minutes software rebounds and boom, the algos catch on. But it's at the whims of how the market interprets it. Marvell, $3 away from going below 300. I wonder if below 300, does it just fall out? Does the hype die, or do we keep going? Alphabet sees fiscal year capex to 190 billion versus 186 billion. Okay, so that's a 4 billion increase. Ironically, they're increasing their equity by 4x, or by 4 billion as well on the dilution. Gemini app monthly active users 900 million versus 400 million in the month of May for Google. And then they expect 3.5 Pro in June. 3.54 in June. By the way, Google right there, 364. Guess what company is not in the S&P 500 yet? And that could get in pretty soon. Take a wild guess. On Friday, we'll know. On Friday, we will know. CoreWeave continuing to get hit as well. It is indeed Marvell. So part of the reason this was getting bought this week might be on speculation that it gets into the S&P, which look, the S&P is not the only thing that matters, but that, like, a lot of companies get into the S&P and a couple months later they get hit pretty bad. But the short-term pop could be another 10% pretty quickly if they get into the S&P. So maybe that's also why people are buying it, along with the Jensen comments. Micron now starting to get hit a little harder. Zeta down 7. CrowdStrike down 3. Nvidia, is she losing? She is losing badly today. 218. They tricked us yesterday. They tricked us. They took her up to freaking 235, making us think everything was okay. Everything's not okay, as they're bringing her right back down. Macy's goes red. GameStop potentially losing. Reddit can also get in. That's correct. Reddit can also get in. Reddit right there, 5% down. Again, has anything changed with Reddit over the past couple of days? Or ServiceNow over the past couple of days? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is just everyone gets hit, so everyone gets hit. But it really is everyone getting hit. Outside of a few select AI names, your semis are not blistering green right here. Even AMD, 547 now to 532. This one has about 2% to hold on to its green. Apple usually on these days goes up. Apple, wow. All-time highs, 316.50. They've got WWDC in a couple of days. They're the only ones not spending CapEx money, which is, I think, part of the premium that they get. Do we have PMI today? Do we have PMI? I think we do. PMI 50.7 versus 51 expected. That's a miss. Composite PMI 51.5 versus 51.7. That is a miss. That is a miss. So we got 2 misses on PMI on a red day, which is not good. Again, above 50 means we're expanding, but look at that red candle. Wow. There's that S&P. It loses 757 right on the PMI data with a double miss. I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal, but if the market's red, it's not the best thing to see. Also, total vehicle sales in the month of May for the United States of America, 16.1 million. The street thought it would be 16 million. So we sold 100,000 more cars than expected. The mortgage rates, by the way, 6.57 versus 6.65. So mortgage rates came down a little. Vehicle sales beat by a little, but PMI is what's getting the hit right here. Microsoft 432. 432. Dude, Microsoft is like this one. I mean, you think it's ready. You think it's ready to go. You think all the narratives are lining up. Chip play, software's back, NVIDIA partnership. And then my theory is the Google dilution made the street realize Microsoft's going to do it too. There's no way Microsoft can let Google get away with doing that. And by the way, if you're buying Google, you're probably buying Microsoft, right? At least on the institutional level. I mean, these, they're buying hundreds of billions of dollars of these stocks at scale. So if there's demand for Google, there should be demand for Microsoft. Like, yes, Google has outperformed Microsoft over the past couple of years, but it shouldn't be that discriminate towards one versus the other. Same thing for Amazon. So same thing for NVIDIA. But NVIDIA is going to get all the CapEx. They're not going to dilute. They raise the dividend. They're doing more buybacks. And they also get hit. Tesla flipping green. So Tesla's the one that actually gets a little bit of love today. A 7 million put spike just came on the S&P 500 in the options flow. 7 million of puts just came in. Oh, Marvell, did we lose 300? We have officially lost 300. All right. They're dumping her. They are dumping her. So now here's the moment for the people that bought around this range yesterday and didn't sell in the after hours. Now they have to ask themselves, okay, do I just take the money and run, get the hell out? AMD also losing 530. Or do I think the dip buyers will come in and Marvell will flip back to the 300s? And just in this amount of red, I'm not sure how the street's going to think of it. Apple right there, 316. What a Wednesday, huh? Just completely flipped from last night. I think oil was the tell this morning, though. I mean, when I woke up and I saw it at 96, I was like, okay, it's not going to be, at least in the short term, it's not going to be fun. I mean, it was at 88 on Monday, bro. 88 to 96 is a pretty freaking big move on oil. Meta right there losing the majority of its pump as well. Meta's, so I'm reading from the article right here. Meta's AI agent for WhatsApp Business is now available globally. Meta said the AI agent can answer customer questions, recommend products, book appointments, qualify sale leads, and reroute queries to a person if needed. It's testing a way for its business agent to provide daily briefings of chats that occurred overnight. Meta is planning to charge businesses for using this AI agent by including it in tiers of WhatsApp Business premium subscription. It's not really new news, but it is a good update on their business offerings. So I guess it's not horrible. They're selling Marvell to buy Broadcom earnings today. I mean, maybe, but they're also selling off Broadcom here. Maybe they're going to wait for the earnings. CoreWeave, look out below. 111, down 6. I actually don't mind this because I think 100 is your reload range for an entry. But we got to see if they take it there. NVIDIA, dude, they had this thing at 215 on Friday. Took it to 211 on the rebounds. Took it to 235 yesterday. Now bring it to 216 a day later. It's just every day a swing up or down with this stock. AMD very close to losing its green for the day as well. Zeta hit, Hood hit, Palantir hit. SoFi demolished, down 6% here. Robinhood demolished, down 5%. BlackBerry, that hype after hours, it's hard to last if you got a red market. Like, it's really hard to last if the whole market goes red. $10 right here. Nokia, same thing with this, was pushing 17 yesterday. Iren barely holding on to that green. Nebius 250 from 285 yesterday. And then SPY going down with it. Amcor was up 8% pre-market. Amcor now red. SPY 755. Gale says I'm up 12,000 on shorting Marvell so far. Well, it's been a good short. It's been a good short so far. But if it can get a rebound, I wonder if the shorts double down in that 305, 310 range, or if that one just rips through. Trying to come back. There you go. Back to 300, 294 bounce. Let's see if that's enough to get some of these other guys coming in. Got a little bit of a green candle on Broadcom. A little bit of Google, a little bit on NVIDIA. So the green candles coming in. Not water falling down yet. Microsoft, do we have a green candle there? Nope. Microsoft has no green candle. But you are still red. I mean, I think this is very healthy. Yeah, I mean, look, it is pretty healthy. I hate saying it because no one wants to hear someone say it's healthy when everyone's losing money. But guys, come on. It's like this. It's been a crazy couple weeks. Like if we were to take a breather, yeah, it's healthy, dude. As much as I would hate it as well, it is. Like it is. 5% pullback. It would reset a lot of expectations, allow things to consolidate, allow multiples to mature. But obviously it would suck as well. Bitcoin right there, 66.8. 66.8 right there. You're not really losing if you're not selling. Yeah, that's also true. I mean, again, these are paper losses compared to people. Like if you bought Broadcom at 430, like, yeah, it's not at 490, but it's at 470, right? So if you bought Reddit at 145 last week, it's not at 180 anymore, but it is at 160. And then it's just a question of, hey, you know, is this an opportunity? Micron right there trying to get a little bit of green as well. Lumentum, again, these photonic stocks, they go up and down literally 5 to 10% every day. Lumentum was pushing 1,100 yesterday, now 974. Right back down. The S&P 500 has not been up 10 days in a row since 1995. Today is the potential 10th day. I mean, if that's not a reason the market makers want to take her down, that could be the reason, folks. That could be the reason. We haven't had 10 green days. I didn't even realize we were pushing 9 green days. I didn't know that. So it's been 31 years since we've had 10 days in a row green. Today could be that day if we end up flipping green by the end of the session. Broadcom 479. Navitas, look, that's still holding its pump. That one has been a champ. That one has been a champ all day. Bull's not letting that one slow down in the midst of this. NVIDIA for sure is at 10 red days. I can't remember the last time NVIDIA is at 2 days in a row of green. I really can't. When's the last time NVIDIA is at? It has to go back to early May, where they teased us with that 240 after hours. And then they took her down. ARM getting hit. That's down 5. That is down 5. Where is Walmart? Walmart's up. Okay. So Walmart goes green. Some of your other AI names go green. Why did Steve just text me a picture of donuts or cookies? Whatever desserts these are. Look at this. He's not even worried about the stock market, dude. Look at this. This guy's worried about what dessert to get. This guy's not even freaking worried about oil going up. I don't care. I can see he has a coffee in his hand. This guy is enjoying his Wednesday morning. Wednesday, June 3rd. Walmart goes green with a higher PE than NVIDIA. And NVIDIA goes down. You know, I have forgotten what it feels like to experience a morning that is not chaotic, filled with candles going up and down. Like the only times I experience those are on long weekends and I end up sleeping through Monday morning on those weekends. So I don't know what it feels like for it to be like 9:45 and you're just, you know, taking a nice little walk across the neighborhood or something, you know, like I don't know if I'll ever experience that. SoFi right there. That's down 5%. And doesn't count on Saturdays and Sundays. Doesn't count. The weekend has a different vibe. Has to be on a weekday. It sounds terrible. It does sound terrible compared to looking at candles go up and down. That's way more fun. ServiceNow loses 120. Ready red. Ready red. Right there. Did anyone buy the dip already? Did anyone? I mean, I think the reason people are kind of afraid to buy the dip is because everyone is expecting, okay, like eventually the red day will turn into a real red day. I don't know the last time we even had 1% red on the S&P. And like we're going to actually get some really good opportunities. But every time people think that's going to happen, we don't, right? We end up getting an hour of an opportunity and then we flip green. And it would not surprise me if that happens today already. Bought some Meta and Google today. Where is Meta? We are still at 611. Google handling that dilution like a champ, really not getting hit. People saying bought some NVIDIA, bought some Amcor, bought some SoFi. SoFi is kind of disappointing, dude, but it's all fintech. Can't ask much if it's all a fintech. 84.48 on Hoodie. Roku. This one's actually had a relatively decent earnings, but that's down 3.9%. Someone just bought 2.5 million of IBM calls for 310, expiring June 12th. IBM is at 305. IBM down 7% today. Is the Quantinium IPO happening today? I'm probably not going to be live for it. 14.3 billion. It's today, right? Does anyone know the ticker? So that'll be one to look at tomorrow morning when that officially happens. Or is it tomorrow? It's tomorrow? Okay, that's tomorrow. Okay, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. ASTS down 7. Tessie getting some love. By the way, when SpaceX goes public in 2 weeks, Elon Musk will be the first trillionaire on this planet. So even if the IPO, goes like 30% as well as people are expecting it to go, he will still be a trillion. He's very close to it. So officially, when they raise that 1.5 to 2 trillion, he will be a trillionaire, which is, I'm excited for it because I admire ambition. I don't know how the rest of the country is going to think of one guy being worth $1 trillion, but it's going to be pretty crazy to see. Meta right there, 612. NVIDIA trying to get a bounce at 216. And then the Googs at 612. GameStop's going up again because it had a really good earnings. First growth quarter in about 2 years. MasterCard, is that down? MasterCard is down. Is Visa down? Visa is down. Cerebras, where is this thing? 219, that's down. Marvell, are we still holding 300? Nope. Rejected it. Okay, 294, that's your level. Do we get a new intraday low on Marvell, 294 today? Can the Bears protect that, or the Bulls protect it? Or is that one going down? Walmart right there still up 2.5. Michael Burry, updates from him last night. He has rolled all of his puts for a debit. So just like you can roll covered calls, if you can also roll options you bought, but you don't get a net credit. You have to pay to roll them because you're obviously underwater on them. He's rolled all of his puts on Palantir. He went from 50 to 80. His puts on NVIDIA, he went from 100 to 125 on the strike. And then he did the same with the Qs and the semiconductor index. But the interesting thing is he rolled them all to January 2027. He had them in March. He rolled them back to January, but increased the strike, probably to offset the amount that he would have to pay in the debit, because obviously if you're extending the time, you have to pay more money on these options. Tesla just went red. And what's interesting to me is that he legitimately believes, January 2027 is not that far away. It's 7 months. Like, it's really not that far in the grand scheme of things. He thinks this thing collapses in the next 7 months. And the fact that he has the conviction and belief to bring that strike or bring that date forward, either he's going to be completely right or he's going to be completely wrong. And, over the coming months, we're going to see how the market ultimately interprets it. Meta right there, 612. Navitas still up 22%. Bitmine's down 3%. Figma's down 6%. And then Bitcoin is down a little bit. Airtest Systems, that's up 2%. That's up 2%. He's playing with the macro and midterm year volatility. Look, that's the thing we stopped talking about, this midterm year volatility, because we experienced the Iran war volatility. And so I think we're forgetting that midterm years are really bad. This would be the time for that midterm year volatility to start hitting and really hurt everybody. But obviously it's been, a bull market every single day. And so either we buck the trend or we fall back into it. And we're going to have to see over the next coming months. The VIX, by the way, up 3%. The VIX has been at, dude, remember the VIX every day was pushing like 25, 26? The VIX has been below 20 basically since April 20th. Since close to the end of April, we've had about a month and a half of VIX below 20, which has been not too bad. We have ISM Services PMI that just came in, 54.5 versus 53. That's a beat. Services paid at 71.3 versus 70. That's a beat. Employment 47.9 versus 48. That's a miss. And then new orders 57.3 versus 53.5. That's a beat. So PMI wasn't that good but ISM services actually relatively decent. And you're seeing some of these numbers come in a bit better right now.
Got some fresh economic data coming. Let's get to Rick Santel.
Last year. And if we look at the durable good orders, these are all final reads, meaning mid-month gets moved out. 7.9 becomes 8%. 8% is a very strong number. Last time it was 8%. We have to go all the way back to, well, this is the best since a year ago as well. Now let's look at durable orders, ex transportation, up 1.1%. That would equal the last couple months. It's been back to back. To find a higher number, you're in February where it was a little bit over 2%. Now let's look at capital good orders, non-defense ex-air proxy for capital spending, minus 1%, very close to expectations. That replaces minus 1.1. And even though this is not a terrific number, 3.9% was the best since June of 2020. That was our March number. A little mean reversion going on there. Let's switch gears to shipments. It remains at up 0.4%. Now, let's go to the ISM side of the equation for services. We had S&P Global. On the ISM, these are all fresh, no mid-month reads. 54.5, much stronger than expected. That'll be the best read since February, so the second best read of the year. If we look at prices paid, we want this one to go down a bit. And indeed, it was less than expectations. They were over 72. This comes in at 71.3. The problem is it's still sequentially higher than 70.7 in the rearview mirror. 71.3 would be the warmest on this number since August of 22. And if we look at what's going on with new orders, 57.3, much stronger than expected. That would be the best level, well, just since March when it was over 60. And
okay, that data, not necessarily horrible, even though PMI wasn't the best. SPY is trying to get that little bounce right there. That's what you're seeing. That's helping Marvell at 307. Again, every day, the itty-bitty red that we see, it gets the intraday bounce. And I wonder today if we just continue with our bounce. Robinhood getting a bounce, Meta getting a bounce, NVIDIA getting literally no bounce. It's hilarious. Navitas getting a bounce. Even Bitcoin, very small bounce, it's getting it. Microsoft, $1 bounce from 430. CoreWeave as well, 110 to 112. I mean, I don't know if we flip green, but you at least have some people coming in to buy the day. Brock Lab, 118. Micron, little bit of movement. Zeta as well, very little bit of movement, 22.98 to 23. Credo, again, great earnings, but it was up a lot going into the print, and that's why that got hit. Yeah, Meta released agents in every platform. That's why you're seeing the pump right here. I mean, look, I think it's bullish news, but I don't know if it's enough to change Meta's narrative right now. Meta's in a weird spot, dude. There's been multiple articles that have come out about Meta employees and how disgruntled they are. I know a few people at Meta, and one person told me every time he gets RSUs, he sells them and he buys Google. Like it's actually, he's like, dude, I get my stock, I sell that shit, and I buy Google. Like, I don't care. He's like, he's not really the most excited about Zuck's vision. And I get that. I think that's fair. But I also think the stock is cheap as an investor, and I kind of don't have the mindset of an employee who's disgruntled from whatever issues the employee is dealing with. I think the stock's cheap, and I think inevitably it will get a re-rating, but I don't know when. When he told me that, it was kind of funny. It was like, dude, I don't think Zucks knows what he's doing when it comes to AI. I'm here for my paycheck. I get my stocks. I sell that shit. I was like, look, I get it. It's also not unique to him. I mean, a lot of people work at companies that, they don't care about the company stock. They're there for the paycheck, and they sell the stock and go buy something else. But Meta's got a brand issue right now, a narrative issue. I think eventually Zucks fix it. I just don't think you bet against Zucks either, But right now he's kind of back against the wall. Sundar in 2025, he's got to turn shit around. Microsoft right there, 432. 432. As that one is down 2.3%. Can you imagine if NVIDIA employees did this 10 years ago? Yeah, look, it's a fair point, man, because NVIDIA was stuck for a long time. Like a long time. We're in this bull market, and we're seeing these massive breakouts, and then we're seeing these super small companies that break out within a day. But realistically, it takes time. Like, it's one of those things we kind of haven't been conditioned for because it's been a really 5-year massive bull run outside of 2022. And, you know, a stock like NVIDIA took a lot of time, a lot of hiccups, a lot of green days that immediately went red at any sight of good news until it broke out. And the question is just how long does it take for some of the other Mag 7? Shopify, that's down 2.6 as well. IONQ, is that green? We are green. Okay, Marvell, who's buying it right here? Who's buying it? Like legit buying it, not trading it, but legit, you're putting it in the portfolio and you're like, I'm going to let it ride to $1 trillion. And I'm not going to panic sell if it drops 15%. Like, who's actually, I'm curious. I traded it yesterday. I don't think I have the stomach to buy it at these levels. I just don't. Comebacks down to like 230, maybe around the range. 250 was the initial pump. But I also think you deserve the rewards if it does pump because, you know, Jensen said it's $1 trillion. You bought it in the face of volatility. And if it goes to $1 trillion, then it goes to $1 trillion. Cerebras right there, that's down 7. Okay, I'm seeing a few people say yes. If you already hold it, you already hold it. That's fine. If you already hold it, you just sit back and say, thank you, Mr. Jensen Huang. That's it. For the people that are buying it, it is more interesting. I bought some calls on it. Bought it in my Roth. Bought it at 300, set and forget. It was 75 in March. It was. But there were a lot of good deals in March. And March was just unbelievable. That's why, again, this whole Tom Lee narrative of we're going down to March levels again. I don't see it, bro. I don't freaking see it. Not with the earnings growth. I think it's like, I don't want to say there's no chance, but the idea that we go back to 6,300 on the S&P, the idea that Dell, after these numbers, goes back to 80, like, I cannot see it. I really can't. I don't think it makes sense. BlackBerry, Nokia getting a little bit more of a bid. And so I think now like 6,900 is our bottom, and that would be a pretty ugly decline. Keel getting a nice little bid today as well. That's up 3.8%. You know, maybe 7,000, but because what's 10% from here? 10% from here would be 6,750. That's not, you know, that's not anywhere near the March lows. March lows were 6,300. Poet, that's up. Your photonics play is lighting up a little bit. Poet right there, that's slightly green. Corning as well, pretty green. And then Marvell, 308. What's happening with Palantir? Software, once again, getting hit, unfortunately. 162 to 146, dude. But we saw how quickly it went to 162, right? When the market makers like software, they'll just bid it up. When they don't, they will bid it back down. Ondas is down 9% today. So your drone stock's taking a little bit of a hit. Uber cutting 23% of roles in departments, including human resources and recruiting, to simplify its team structure. Okay, you got Uber. That's not 23% layoffs in the company, but that is 23% of roles in HR and recruiting, which, I mean, look, I'm not a recruiter, but I would imagine AI can do a pretty decent job at least screening candidates. And then maybe you need an actual recruiter to obviously interview them for the job. But you could definitely have AI mitigate some of the brunt work there. HR, I don't know. I have never dealt with an HR department. So I don't know. I don't know what HR is like. I don't know what it feels like to have to go talk to HR or deal with HR. I don't really think you can automate HR. My gut tells me you need human to human. It's called human resources. Dude, if AI automates something called human resources, that is, talk about Black Mirror. If AI automates human resources, it'd be kind of funny. It'd be kind of funny. Iridium, another space play, that is up 8%. It's actually going the opposite of some of these other satellite-based plays. That one's green. A couple of you guys work in HR. yeah, I don't know. Never had to deal with an HR situation. But it would be ironic if AI replaces it. Marvell right there, 308. 308. AI resources, yeah, dude. Imagine getting called into the AI resources office and it's just a computer. It's just ChatGPT explaining what you did wrong. I mean, that would be hilarious. GameStop right there, up 8.6. Nokia, are we going down? Nope, we're going up. That was at 1640. Pre-market 1725. Again, insider buying on Nokia has been pretty massive. BlackBerry starting to get a little bit of rebound as well, 1057. NVIDIA 216, bottomed at 215 on the day. S&P, little green candle right there. Again, Uber, it's not 23% of the workforce. The way I'm reading the headline is 23% of roles in HR and recruiting, which is much different than 23% of the entire workforce. So maybe it's not the worst headline. Marvell 312. Okay, bulls are back. Humanoid resources. That is what it really needs to be. That is what it really needs to be. Update right here on Trump and some of the stuff he said this morning.
Confirm that with him. I asked the president on Monday if he'd talked to Benjamin Netanyahu about any of this. The president told me, no, I haven't talked to him, but I will talk to him and I will ask what's going on with Lebanon. After I hung up the phone with the president, he did make that call to Netanyahu. And then we see these reports start to emerge that the president used that obscenity with Netanyahu and was extremely frustrated with the Israeli invasion of Lebanon. Then we see a Truth Social post from the president, which we can put up on screen, in which the president asserts what the Israelis agreed to. He said, I had a very productive call with Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel, and there will be no troops going to Beirut, and any troops that are on their way have already been turned back. So you see the president here suggesting that he's also talked to Hezbollah, and they've agreed that all shooting will stop, that Israel will not attack them, and they will not attack Israel. So the president suggesting that the Israelis have agreed to back off. Netanyahu took an enormous amount of static domestically for that, appearing to agree with Trump to back off. Then we see this statement from Netanyahu, which we can also put up on the screen, in which he appears to suggest, well, we haven't necessarily agreed to pull all the way back. Netanyahu says, if Hezbollah does not cease attacking our cities and citizens, Israel will attack terror targets in Beirut. So Netanyahu continuing to suggest that Israel will press forward with that invasion of Lebanon. So where do we stand right now? It's a little bit muddled and unknown, and that's why I think the whole world will be watching this interview to find out what Netanyahu says about Israeli military action in Lebanon. Does that continue? Does it?
That could also be a reason. So Netanyahu's going to be live in a little bit. That could also be the reason the market's kind of like wavering a little bit. If he publicly says we are going to do whatever we want to do, and Trump can't really change, our objectives, I think the credit markets react first before the stock market. I think the oil markets react first. Oil's still 94.6 on the day. I think Trump probably called him up and said, hey, don't go on CNBC, the business network, and tell everyone who cares about business that you're going to do whatever the hell you want, because it's not going to have a good impact on business. But I also wonder if he cares. I mean, Trump's tweet was like, I had a productive call with Netanyahu, but then the reports are that, he's cursing at the guy. So obviously it might not have been as productive if he's yelling and upset. I don't know. We got to see. We've got to see. Rivian has been going up for the past week. I really don't know why. They had some R2 updates, but if you're in Rivian, it's been a dog for the past year. It's starting to get a bit of a breakout. They had that big chip day last year. That's when it also got a breakout. It ended up getting dumped 30% after that chip announcement. But there's nothing in their gross margins or their car sales, at least that I've seen the headlines, that gets Rivian to go up. All right, I think he's live. Okay, here we go.
For uranium to make atomic bombs. I think all that is on the table. And I think the the president believes that he can get this through diplomatic pressure and tough negotiations, and I think he should be given a chance.
So let's talk about the call that you had with him this week, which is getting a lot of attention. The president confirmed that he said you're effing crazy. How did you react to that? What really happened in that call?
Well, I'm not going to get into details of our conversations. We've had thousands, well, a lot of them. And if you think this is a crisis, you should be in some other conversations. But we've always found a way. We have so many agreements. We agree on the main things. We want to get Iran, the nuclear program in Iran, finished. We want to make sure that Iran doesn't pose a threat to Israel, to the Middle East, to America, that it doesn't develop nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them, not only to Israel and to every capital in Europe, but to every city in the United States. That's our common goal. That's what we set out to do. And to expand the circle of peace, as the president and I did in the Abraham Accords together. So we have common goals. Sometimes we have, as in the best of families, you have these tactical disagreements. We always find a way to work them out. And we do so as great friends. We can disagree in the morning, and by the afternoon, we're common action.
So I was going to say, has your relationship at all shifted with him?
No. This has been a great relationship because he's been the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House, and he respects me. I respect him. We always find a way to work out our differences.
Did he say that you'd be in jail if not for me?
Look, I'm not going to get into the details, but he's been very vocal about the absurdity of this fake trial that I'm going through. You know, they asked me. I don't know if this came up with the last time you were here, but since then,
2 years ago.
Yeah, well, since then, they've asked me in the court, you know, I'm supposed to be receiving gifts. So one of the first things they said to me is, Prime Minister, 30 years ago, your 5-year-old child received a Bugs Bunny gift from a friend. So this trial is ridiculous. The president understands what a ridiculous trial is, and he's been very vocal about that. I appreciate it. So, but it's unraveling on its own. It's just so ridiculous.
Okay, so I know you're fighting that, but on the call, what is your expectation for what the president expects from you now when it comes to Lebanon and fighting Hezbollah?
I think he understands that Lebanon has been taken hostage by Hezbollah. It's basically taken over the country. It's an Iranian proxy that puts all the citizens of Lebanon at gunpoint and uses Lebanon as a platform to launch terror missiles into our cities, to launch killer drones against our civilians. And so if we want to save Lebanon, and if we want to get a Lebanese-Israeli peace, as I do, we have to disarm Hezbollah and we have to demilitarize Lebanon. And I think that's a goal that, it's not I think, I know that this is a goal that the president and I share. And that's what we have to do. So we're trying to, how shall I say this, degrade Hezbollah so that a free and independent Lebanon can emerge. We're still working on it, but we're en route.
But did you tell him that you would stop in order to get the peace talks going?
No, I think what we discussed is something else. They were firing, Hezbollah was firing these terror missiles into our cities. You know, they hide behind their civilians and they fire at our civilians. Like Hamas in Gaza, they commit double war crimes. And we are responding, we're targeting the terrorists themselves. The terrorist chieftains, many of them are in Beirut. So they're giving orders to target our cities from Beirut. And we said, if you keep on targeting Israeli territory and our cities and our communities, then we'll take out these terror chieftains in Beirut with surgical strikes. And an understanding seemed to have evolved 2 days ago, really, that they will not target Israeli territory and we will not target the terrorists in Beirut.
Has that helped?
I'm not sure, because it looks like we're checking this, that they fired into our territory. In this case, if that happens, we'll obviously respond. But I think that on the whole, that's a beginning of a change. But ultimately, the change has to be the disarm Hezbollah. You know, you can't have these genocidal terrorists taking over this poor country of Lebanon, using it to try to invade Israel the way that Hamas invaded us, murder our civilians, decapitate our men, rape our women. It's just, no country would accept.
And yet you're already facing resistance. I mean, President Macron of France this week said there's no justification for the major escalation by Israel in Lebanon. How do you respond to that?
The escalation is from Hezbollah. We had a ceasefire, they violated it. Look, the way European leaders cater to radical Islamic minorities in their own countries is shameful, because they know the truth. They know that when we act against Iran that cause death to America, death to Israel, death to everything in between that is not part of their Islamist radical ilk, they know we're protecting them as well. But they don't have the guts to stand up and line up with the right thing that will save our civilization against these barbarians.
You think they're just protecting themselves politically?
Yeah, I don't think they're protecting themselves because I think ultimately people identify strength and they identify weakness. And leaders, real leaders, have to stand up to public criticism. They have to stand up to fake vilifications. And you have to do what's right for the security of your country. That's what I've been doing in Israel. I've enjoyed not only the support of the people, but the support, the courage, the heroism of our young generation. Everybody said, this is a TikTok generation. They will not fight like you guys fought in your days when I was in the army for 5 years. They won't do it. They've been amazing, amazing. They fight with such courage, with such sacrifice, with such heroism. So I think it's the strength of our people, the strength of our army, and frankly, the strength of our government and the ability that I've had to pass the decisions that were not popular in the international community, but are absolutely central to assure our survival. And you know, I'm not the first one to do this. People often talk about Churchill. Yeah, Churchill was hailed as a warmonger. An ambassador is a warmonger. They said, why are you upsetting the peace of Europe? What's this thing? You want to fight the Nazis all the time and so on. And he said, that's the only way I'll save my country. It's the only way I'll save Western civilization. Well, we're faced with an enemy that wants to destroy our country, that wants to destroy your country, that wants to destroy free democracies everywhere and spread their terrorist ilk around the globe. So when we fight Iran and its proxies, we're not only fighting our war, we're fighting your war, and frankly, Europe's war as well.
And yet, the war is so unpopular in the U.S.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think people don't see the direct connection between the dangers they would face tomorrow with the actions that we're doing today to remove those dangers. And democracies always have that problem. You know, they'll always look at the moment. What's the next election cycle? What's the next headline and so on? Dictatorships are usually immune to this because they don't really have public opinion to answer to. And the question is, for leaders, it's a big challenge. You know, how do you face, attacks on you, political attacks, vilifications, and so on? You sort of cower under it. You say that there's nothing I can do. I have to stop protecting my people because I'm going to get a bad editorial in the Western press. And the answer is no. No, I'd rather get a bad editorial than a positive obituary. You know, our people have died long enough. And what has changed for us is that the kind of recriminations and the kind of lies that are leveled at the Jewish people over the centuries are now being leveled at the Jewish state. There's no difference, no difference. We deliberately kill children, we perform genocide, we're poisoning the wells.
The haters say there's a difference between being anti-Israel and anti-Semitic.
Oh yeah, they say we're not we're not against the Jewish people. We just don't think there should be a Jewish state. We're not against Americans.
We just don't like the Israeli government.
We just don't like, we just don't like, we're not against Americans. We just don't think there should be an America. And it's not the Israeli government. All Israeli governments will fight or should fight to protect our people or will disappear. So here's the difference, Sarah. In previous times, previous centuries, we were vilified and then two things happened. We were either thrown out of a country or destroyed in that country, eliminated. And this culminated in the greatest horror of them all, the greatest massacre of them all, the Holocaust. Since the birth of the state of Israel, we're still being vilified. But when they come to slaughter us, we say, no more, never again. And we fight back. And we fight back targeting the terrorists, targeting the aggressors, trying to save the people, trying to save those communities. And believe me, in the Middle East, contrary to what people think, many understand that. And in Iran, you know, I'm embarrassed to say this, but they named streets after me.
I know you said that before.
Squares. Yeah, well, you should say it. Of course, it's taken down by the goons of the regime any moment because they understand. We're fighting for the good guys.
Why isn't the regime weaker at this point?
It's a lot weaker. It's a lot weaker. The action that President...
They still seem that they have leverage in this negotiation.
The actions that President Trump and I undertook and that our brave militaries took together in a closeness that we've never had before. And I have to tell you again, President Trump has been the greatest friend of Israel ever. We've never had such a friend in the White House. He's outstripped everyone. And that partnership has degraded Iran. It knocked out their army, knocked out their navy, knocked out their.
But they still control the strait.
Yeah, they control the straits, but I'll tell you what'll happen. We've done that. But I could say, we've been, as the U.S. themselves say, we've been the model ally, probably the only truly fighting ally that the United States has today. And we've wreaked a lot of damage to this regime. Not destroyed it, but weakened it. We see the cracks propagating in the regime. We see them they can't hold on to their money machine. They're afraid that they'll lose the ability to even pay their goons. So that they've been weakened, and that's why it's possible to press them not only militarily but economically with this blockade that I thought was a fantastic idea. So they're still there, but they're much weakened. I think Israel has never been stronger. Iran has never been weaker, and that's due to the partnership between the United States and Israel, President Trump and myself.
Okay, if you would just hang with us for a moment, we're going to take a quick break, Mr.
Okay. So the core thing that we needed to get from that interview was, is he diverging from Trump and is he going to take military action on his own? I don't think we got that. And so from a sort of market direction perspective in terms of what would happen or not, S&P basically flat, at a little bit of a red candle there, 756. I think if you heard comments that were more antagonistic against the president's wishes, I mean, he really refrained from commenting on the call and what Trump said. And, maybe he's implicitly making the argument that, yes, Trump did get angry and stuff, but he didn't confirm that. He didn't try to drive a wedge between the two, which is, I think, what the market was looking for, to see, is he going to play ball with this whole negotiation and eventually get it resolved? And I think if that's what the market needed to see, that's what they got. Not sure if stocks are necessarily going to rebound completely green today, but Marvell right there, 313. You're not getting an immediate catalyst for oil to spike or for the market to think negotiations are completely over. And, hopefully that is what continues to happen. 94.85 right there on oil, up about 1%. Yeah, the market kind of just doesn't care, which, I think is, it's good, right? Because if he said something that was a bit more aggressive to the extent where he kind of would publicly say, I don't really care what Trump says. We're going to take our own action. We're going to do what we have to do in Lebanon. We're not going to be beholden to the whims of the United States. He did not say any of that. And as a result, I think stocks at least can manage for the day, not having to worry about Israeli-U.S. relations being completely ruined going into this negotiation. NVIDIA, lows of the day as this one continues to come down. 215.77. At least S&P is not at the lows of the day, but it is still red. Little bounce at 754 to 756. Marvell, it's got a lot of strength, man. 314, almost flipping back to pre-market levels as that continues to go green. Palantir 145.86, that's still down 4%. Poet, there's your move right there, up 4.7. BlackBerry up 3, Nokia. Dude, I feel like BlackBerry and Nokia are going to trade with each other to an extent. They kind of have been. Both of them phones from the 2000s. Maybe that's what happened Zeta as well, getting a little bit of a flip. And Micron 1067, that's also getting a little bit of a flip. Again, I will say it is important to listen to all perspectives. Everyone can have their opinion, but if you completely decide not to listen to different perspectives, especially in a market where there's so many different variables, that is the part of the reason why, when Trump talks, even if you hate Trump, you got to listen to what he says. If you don't like Bibi, you still got to listen to what he's going to say, because he could have a direct impact on the markets. So, for me, I really don't care about the politics of it. You guys know that. I honestly could care less about the politics of it. I legitimately do not go to sleep at night thinking at all about the politics of any of this stuff. I care about what it means for the markets. And if someone influential is speaking, then we usually have to listen to what he's going to say about the market. Trump lies, so why listen? Because he's still the president. Again, this is business. This is not political. If this was a political show every morning, then we would listen to all the people that we care about that are preaching our side of the aisle. This is business. I don't care if you're Bernie Sanders. I don't care if you're Rubio. I just care about what is your perspective on something that's going to affect the stock market. And that's why we listen to this stuff. 314 on Marvell, as that one continues to go up. Do you swing more left or right? It doesn't even matter what I swing left or right, because half you guys think I'm right, half you guys think I'm left. We say this every time we get into a political conversation, but it literally doesn't matter. I could say I voted for Biden, none of you guys would believe me. I could say I voted for Trump, 50% of you guys wouldn't believe me. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm MAGA to some of you, I'm communist to some of you, which is a good thing, because that means I'm not overtly on one side. That's exactly how it should be. But again, my political beliefs really shouldn't matter. I don't think anyone here is getting their politics from me. My political beliefs, I really doubt should influence anyone's ability to think about a topic politically. But, those politics are intertwined with market analysis, which is what most people care about. Yeah, I'm not red or blue, and I'm green, baby. I am green. See these stocks go up, except if your name is NVIDIA. You're not allowed to go green if you are NVIDIA. Okay, so Tesla, did we get the flip? Tesla got the flip to almost 430. You're actually brown? Yeah, exactly. I'm actually brown. Every politician lies. Yes, every politician lies. This is not stuff that we have to, get super granular on. Trump lies, Biden lies, Harris lies, Bibi lies. They all lie, bro. I'm not going to get into my political rant. I've done this rant like 15 times over the past 2 years. But the thesis of my rant is the politicians don't matter. Worry about yourselves. They don't care about you. They're never going to care about you. Bernie doesn't care about you. Trump doesn't care about you. They don't care about you. You have to care about yourself, your family, and your immediate community. And I think a lot of political content is just theater. It's literally entertainment to me. It has nothing to do with what's going to happen in your life. You can think it does, and then the reality of it is it ends up not actually affecting anything. So, to me, that's why a couple of years ago, I gave up on politics. I stopped caring about it. I think markets are a much more important thing to care about. S&P right there, 756.79. Still red on the day. All right, Marvell, here it is, 320. Can we break through 320? Can we break through 320? It's not at 320 yet, but this would be the level where if we break 320, I think 330 is on deck. Last night was crazy in the overnight. I mean, Jason was trying to do a new stock every couple of minutes, and then Marvell just kept bouncing up. So it's not like that one was slowing down. Wow, Dalio's on Bloomberg. The world's ending soon. Let's go to him real quick. He's going to tell us there's too much debt on this planet. Everything's going to shit soon.
There's often been bond markets that test.
There's the headline. Dalio, debt burden has passed point of no return. That's what he says. That's what he says every day. It's all going to be over.
A Federal Reserve chair. Is Kevin Warsh about to get a big test?
Of course. One man's debts are another man's assets. Okay. And if there's not a high enough real return, then those bonds are not appreciated. Okay. So what are you holding the bond for? You're holding it for a real return. So the markets ultimately, the marketplace can ultimately decide whether it owns it or not, right?
Do you think we head to the 1930s again, where it's a treasury that works with the Fed? That some of that independence has kind of chipped away out of a necessity to keep debt servicing costs low, for example.
That I think it's exactly headed to that kind of thing, which we also saw a number of times through quantitative easing. It's called financial repression. And the idea is that you drive the bond yields down with buying of assets and so on. Sometimes it includes even foreign exchange controls to try to prevent money from going outside the country and so on. But to have that forced low real rates. And then that's usually accompanied by high taxation and a higher level of inflation to bring in revenue. And because money wants to go to other things, That's when gold has been illegalized. That's when foreign exchange controls come in, and so on and so forth. I'm not saying we're going that far, but I do think the reality is, yes, that the bond market either is fundamentally good by providing a high enough real return to compensate people, or it's going to be manipulated in a sense this way that will make it unattractive. In either case, it's relatively unattractive. And so money goes elsewhere, and that's just the way it works.
You've also been very forward.
Okay, so look, he's not wrong, Dalio, on sort of the macroeconomic take around what's happening with bonds, the duration risk, the rotation of capital outside of those bonds via inflationary assets and taxation to kind of compensate for the fact that bonds are asking for a higher yield. However, we haven't really seen what he's saying play out, at least in the equity markets yet. Corning right there, 206.54. That one, again, Corning is an optics play. It's a photonics play, optics play. They do a lot of things. They've been around for hundreds of years. But the core tailwind for the business right now is optics. And that's why Marvell, really got the market to be excited about optics. And that's why Corning right here is getting a bid up 3% on the day. The thing about Dario is, and I was talking about this on the market close a couple days ago, I watched a documentary of him over the weekend. It was a really good documentary. And I don't think people realize in 1982, Dalio said that, the markets would collapse because of interest rates. And he was wrong for the next 10 years. And Bridgewater basically went under. He had to fire every single employee. He had to borrow $4,000 from his dad to pay his rent in I think it was like 1990, before he came up with a new system to manage money. And then he ended up becoming one of the most successful hedge fund managers of all time. So he had a major comeback. But he stayed dogmatic for 10 years and saw his entire business go under. And so the reason I bring this up is because this is a guy who publicly has made claims that everything's going to collapse and has literally saw his business go to zero without saying that he was wrong, right? And defending, he said he was wrong years later, obviously. But it's one of those things where if he thinks bonds are going to go to shit and that no one's going to buy them and that would collapse the equity markets and gold would go to 10,000 an ounce or something, like, yeah, theoretically it could happen, but I think it's unlikely for it to play out at scale. Now, if oil continues to spike, obviously there's going to be more pressure on bonds. I would imagine oil right there, 95.25. We will get the oil situation resolved, but until then, we're going to have to see what ends up happening. Okay, a couple more quotes from Netanyahu, getting them in right now. Netanyahu, I will leave it to Trump if military escalation is needed. Iran is playing with fire. Opening the Strait of Hormuz is possible militarily. Trump can't simply open the Strait of Hormuz due to the risk of ships. Trump is weighing many options. We talk once every 2 days. Israel is ready to resume full-scale escalation, and Iran has not yet agreed to getting their nuclear material out, but there is pressure that's building for them. All of those quotes are pretty much what the market expected to hear. A little bit of green candle on the S&P. And so you're not necessarily seeing the market be upset about any of the stuff that he said. VG pumping. Yep, VG should be pumping today with oil. I mean, don't you think we're going to have legendary fund managers, traders made during this AI build out? Yeah, this Leopold guy already, right? Now, granted, money management is a hard game and you've got to be able to do it for decades. Dalio, after he lost everything in the 90s, Bridgewater became a $160 billion fund because they called 2008 correctly. So he had his moment of redemption. But kind of by 2012, 2013, the what was it, Pure Alpha fund that they created that was like CAGRing 20, 30%, kind of started CAGRing the types of returns they needed. And it took another 10 years for them to really get some good returns. So money management is just so dynamic that, every year is different. I mean, AI CapEx is a theme this year. What if it's not the theme next year? What if it's not? It's hard to believe that right now. It's hard to say that right now. But what if for some reason AI CapEx isn't the thematic and all the fund managers that are building a career off of it, they have to pivot and they don't know how to pivot. And so it's one of those things where we have to see how long this build out lasts and how substantial it can become. Google diluting and raising their CapEx expectations definitely makes you think that, it's not going to be slowing down anytime soon. Mark Carney from Canada signaled he will be backing down from a measure to force entertainment companies such as Netflix and Disney to make larger financial contributions to Canadian film and television productions. Okay, so you got the Canadian government not giving that much pressure on Netflix or Disney, or trying to take off some pressure. Disney right there basically been flat. Netflix, dude, give us 70s on Netflix. Give us, I feel like we got to be a little bit more patient. I mean, this could be the bottom given it's down a lot from that 110 high on earnings, but give us the 70s. SanDisk continuing to move up, almost 1,800. This is up 70% from the $1,000 level that it was at a month ago. Goldman Sachs on AI, we now expect to combine $5.3 trillion of CapEx spending for the 4 largest hyperscalers from this year to 2030. We highlight a baseline aggregate CapEx estimate of $7.6 trillion between 2026 and 2031 across compute, data centers, and power. That's probably why you're going to have fund managers make their career over the next 5 years on the AI tailwinds, because if it's not slowing down, obviously it could take a hiccup, it could take a breather, but if we're looking at $7.6 trillion. I mean, dude, what happens when one of these Max 7s spends $500 billion themselves? Like Google spent $200 billion this year. What if they raise it to like $400 billion next year? Or $375 billion? I mean, like if it actually, I mean, that's just, it's incomprehensible the amount of money they would have to be spending. But if it is, that's your bull case for Marvell. Quantinium IPO is said to be more than 20 times oversubscribed. Okay, so I know D-Wave's down 5% here, but if the Quantinium IPO is going to be crazy tomorrow, maybe the D-Waves, the IONQs, the Rigettis, they're a proxy buy going into tomorrow. That could happen. Tess says you have risk on times in the markets and risk off times. This is risk on. If you don't capitalize in a revolutionary bull market, you'll never have FU money in the bear markets. I think that's spot on. Yeah. Spot on. Because the time to buy really is, when things hit the fan. But when things are going up, you got to be able to have the profits from when things were going down to be able to buy when things go down again. And things will inevitably go down again. Don't know how it's going to happen, but it always happens somehow. It's just those dips get bought. They get bought pretty aggressively. Why is Microsoft down? Again, my theory here. Wow, 430. They're taking her down. I did not buy the Microsoft breakout this week. I was thinking of it when it was at 465. I'm like, okay, Microsoft's broken out. It's time to go up. I feel like this is the dip buy, like 428. I have a little bit at 413 that I bought 2 months ago, but most of my Max 7 money has been going to NVIDIA and Meta over Microsoft. Microsoft does have a better narrative than Meta. I mean, I think Meta is obviously cheaper. Microsoft has a way better narrative than Meta. And when it was at 460 on Sunday, I was like, okay, that narrative's coming true. Maybe this is the breakout you buy. It's Microsoft at the end of the day. And they took her right back down. I feel like this is the dip. The problem is if it's going down because of software and software continues to be down, then part of the reason Microsoft broke out over the past week is because software broke out, right? We want to say it's the Anthropic chip news, but maybe it's not. And what do we think? Is this the dip guy? I mean, Jason last night said he thinks it's definitely something to look at here. If they are selling chips to Anthropic, that re-rates everything because they haven't really sold chips. Marvell 311, you're seeing a little bit of a red candle there. The problem is Copilot and Office 365, if the market's not happy with that on the next quarter. The other problem is, again, if they really pull a Google, Meta getting a surge right there. Nice to see Meta at least getting some green. If they really pull a Google with the dilution. But the thing is, Google's dilution, it's not even if they diluted at 375, it's at 362. It's like nothing. But if Microsoft dilutes at like 430 and that thing goes down to 400, that would be a much bigger move, especially because Microsoft all-time high is 550, by the way, 551. So they did break the 500s and really rallied back in July of 25. It's just since then they haven't been able to. I'm waiting for 300s. Oh, man. Do we see below 400 again? That would be quite incredible. I mean, the bear case on the NVIDIA announcement, not the bear case, but the kind of who cares type of case is like the laptops aren't going to be available for 8 months. And then they actually have to sell it. Like, what if people
don't like the laptops, right? What if people are just like MacBooks are better? And then, Apple's coming out with this agentic Siri soon. What if Apple's Siri or agentic workflow embedded inside of Mac OS, which they haven't really done yet? You don't really have AI on your Mac yet, outside of like summarizing emails or, stuff that people don't care about. What if that's just way better than whatever NVIDIA laptop Microsoft's Copilot is running on? Because like at the end of the day, they have to prove the laptop is worth buying. Just because they've announced it doesn't necessarily mean it's the most exciting, right? Marvell 312. How much do they cost? That's a good question. I wonder, does anyone know? NVIDIA Microsoft laptop costs. It's got to be over 1,200-ish. 1,500 to 4,500 based on the specs. It starts at 2,950 at the highest model, or at the like base model, 1,500 the lowest, and then 4,500, 43 to 4,500 for the top of the line model, which not everyone needs, but okay, so kind of the same price as the Apple MacBooks as well. Broadcom, that one also trying to flip green, 46. Wall Street Journal just had a bad article on Bill Gates. Yeah, but even when the Bill Gates Foundation sold all their Microsoft, like that felt like peak bottom sentiment, and then we reversed, and now we're right back to the same price. I think we were like 419 the day everyone found out he sold. Now we're at 427. Like it's quite incredible what they took this stock through this year. I think it's a buy though. I think at this level, it's closer to a buy. Amit, do you think Broadcom will beat the earnings significantly? Yes, but I do not think that Broadcom can have a 40% move like Dell or HPE, because it's a $2 trillion company. So I don't think it happens, but I think it will be a good beat. I also think it's an ugly red day. Today's like not the best day for them to report unless we flip sentiment. Amazon, same thing that I have concerns on with Microsoft. Like, we have to realize if freaking Google can sell $84.75 billion of stock in the public markets and get away with it, I just don't understand how Amazon and Microsoft's CFOs aren't convening with their financial teams right now saying, how the hell are we not getting ready to do this? And Amazon already has a mixed shelf offering of around 50 billion. So they've tapped this to an extent, but if they could get away with more, Microsoft doesn't have any mixed shelf offering. They have to do it because it's if they're all spending the same CapEx, Microsoft and Amazon can't load up on bonds and lever up if Google doesn't need to lever up. That just puts them in a worse financial situation, potentially makes their equity less valuable. They should dilute. If they dilute, their stock's probably going to take a little bit of a hit like Google. But, Google is being able to navigate it. Is Tesla purely on the SpaceX merger hype? Yeah, I think so. There was a couple articles this morning from a few sell-side reports around the Tesla merger inevitably happening. But, that's you got to buy it based on that risk. Palo Alto, they're taking her down as well. 6.3. Goodness gracious. Palo Alto continuing to just get destroyed right here, along with Mr. CrowdStrike 752.40, down from 800. Is NVIDIA below 215? Oh my goodness, we missed it. They took her below 215, 20 cents away from revisiting. Okay, so I'm actually surprised Marvell's holding 300 because every other name is just getting wrecked, which shows how strong Marvell is. AMD at least holding 530. That was at 525. Nebius trying to go green. 260, 259 right now. And then your software names are down. Your space names also pretty ugly day. Redwire down 8. Where was Redwire? Redwire was at 28 last week. So now at 18. And ASTS and Rocket Lab the same. Ondas, I don't see an announcement from them today. But once again, the drone names, again, some of them have had a good year, but that Trump announcement kind of came and went. I mean, it was at $8 before the Trump announcement, right? And then it got up to $13.50. So now that it's $11.80, it's still up from where it was before, but obviously down from the highs. Interesting day, folks. Oil's up, markets flat to down. BB didn't necessarily say anything the market should be too upset about, but we're also probably taking a natural breather. YouTube overtakes Netflix in average daily viewing globally, rising from 87 minutes in 2024 to 99 in 2025. Wow, Netflix fell from 100 minutes to 93.4 minutes. Google, baby. I mean, Netflix has done well, but that's your Google thesis. YouTube's an animal. YouTube is an absolute animal. CoreWeave getting hit. Did you buy Keel? I bought Keel at 605 yesterday. Or not yesterday, 2 days ago. Monday. So that is a pure spec bet on Leopold's buy, assuming, he bought 40 million shares for a reason. They do have 3 deals that's possible. Also, when I was looking into Keel, all of their data centers that potentially can come online are specifically for Vera Rubin, not for Blackwell. So that's also another kind of, like, if they get a deal, they're going to have a deal for the latest architecture of NVIDIA stuff, which I think is part of the reason why you're seeing some momentum around it. But they got to get a deal. Just like Iran, they have to get a deal for this thing to re-rate. Iran right there just below 70. He did buy Hive as well. He didn't buy as much Hive, though. He has like 3 million shares of Hive. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's around 3 million. Keel, it's around 19 million. Are you sure all 3 are Vera Rubin? I don't know if they're all 3, but that was the highlight of a couple of the equity reports I read last night on the sell side, saying that if they get a deal, the deal is not going to be for Blackwell. The deal should, I mean, even if it is for Blackwell, it's a deal, right? It should be good. But the Vera Rubin component of it is why the street's excited about it. Again, like even the OpenAI CFO was talking last night, we don't have more data centers. Like some of the projects that were supposed to go online for the past 2 years have not come online yet. So we are so unbelievably compute constrained, which is why the neoclouds even have a business. But that's also because demand is high. If demand goes down, we're not going to be compute constrained, but all signs are pointing to, based on these earnings, demand not going down. And that's why the money keeps going into the the hardware CapEx plays. At this point, Netflix 178 or lower. Yeah, it would not surprise me here. 75 is where it really gets interesting. I think 75, you buy it and you hold it. And you're just like, okay, like it's Netflix at the end of the day. It's not exciting, but still is Netflix. Dalio says AI bubble will burst eventually. Okay. Don't know when, but eventually we're going to see if that happens. Tesla getting your pump right here. No headline on Tessie, but it is indeed Tessie, 433. Besant, he's testifying right now, says Americans are facing tough times, but they should be able to overcome. Besant said I met with major LLM labs in San Francisco on Saturday. Besant, we have a spending and growth problem, chance of sub 4% deficit to GDP ratio by end of term. I don't know if we get sub 4% deficit to GDP if we keep spending the way we're spending, unless we grow 5%, which we're not really growing that fast yet. We're still at like 2% right now. But those are your comments by Besant. Fastly, we talked about this last night. All of these CDNs getting a bid right here. Again, in an agentic world, these companies matter. They're treated as SaaS names, so they're going to fall with IGV, but the ability for them to diverge, whether it's Akamai or Fastly, is very possible. Okay, I have a flight. I should probably leave because I kind of have to get on a flight. So I think that is it for me. We're going to end it a bit early here today. I will not be live on the close. I'll be back tomorrow. Steve will be doing the close later today. Got Broadcom and what's the other one? CrowdStrike later today. Oil is still at 95. Again, I think takeaway from the market here is some stocks on different narratives flipping green, like a Marvell, like a Tesla. Other names, obviously not getting that much love. NVIDIA, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, even after good earnings, down 6%. Amazon, Microsoft getting hit. Meta on that WhatsApp AI news going green. And then the S&P in general, not really reacting to the PMI or the ISM data. And then the Netanyahu comments weren't necessarily enough to get it to react to the downside right here. So you're kind of holding relatively flat, down 0.5%, but nothing that crazy. The rest of the software names go red, and pretty much the rest of the semi names outside of a few of them also going red. And that's what you got. As Nebius, they're going to have a fireside chat today with Bank of America. Roman is going to have a fireside chat. Okay, so some details you might get that are new for Nebius. That could be a tailwind as well. Nebius flipping green. Does Steve have a bell? Steve does have a bell. So if we get a massive move on Broadcom or CrowdStrike, he's going to need to ring the bell. All right, cool. That is it for me. Thank you all for being here. We'll be back tomorrow and Thursday, which is tomorrow. I meant to say and Friday. We'll not have the market close for the next 3 days. Actually, Friday, we might be able to do the market close for the S&P inclusion. We might, but definitely not today and tomorrow. But we'll have the market open. And you guys will find out where I go on Thursday because I'll be there. I'll be there all day. All right, word of the day. Yeah, yesterday's made me rage quit. What was yesterday's again? Yesterday was a stupid one. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm not even going to say it again because I don't know how to say it, and because of the middle of the word, I don't want to say it. But yesterday's was stupid. Today is mellifluous. No. Mellifluous. The U after the L is confusing me, Hebrew. If they just had OUS, it would be. Don't tell me you guys know how to say this. There's no way you guys. Sweet, smooth, and pleasant to hear. His mellifluous delivery. Mellifluous sounds like syphilis, bro. It doesn't sound like it should be. His mellifluous delivery made even a dense earnings discussion sound engaging. Wow, is ChatGPT talking about someone we know? His mellifluous delivery made even a dense earnings discussion sound engaging. I wonder if ChatGPT is talking about someone that we all know, to be honest. Mellifluous or mellifluous? Which one? Mellifluous or mellifluous? I'm going with... Mellifluous just sounds stupid. Mellifluous is more... I'm going with mellifluous. Mellifluous. Let's say...
Mellifluous.
Dude, that was close. That was close. I just missed the F and the L. Instead of mellifluous, it's mellifluous.
Mellifluous.
If I had got the L after the F, that would have been legit. Oh, now you guys all knew that it was fluous, huh? Yeah, of course. Everyone knew it was fluous. Everyone knew. Everyone knows how to talk except me. Everyone knows perfect English. Except the guy that talks all day. Everybody, huh? Everybody. That's what we got today. That's what we got. Thank you all for being here. We'll be back tomorrow. Again, hopefully we can kind of flip green throughout the day. You're seeing a lot of these names get bought up on the dip, but they're not being bought up that aggressively. So we'll see by the end of the day what happens. And then CrowdStrike and Broadcom, those are big ones. We'll talk about them tomorrow morning.